Alright, here it is. It's time to finally demonstrate my results of Will of the Sword, whether this is a good trait to pass on to your personas. And I'm going to be testing out on 3 types of attacks. First will be magic, then will be physical, and then gun. So before I get into damages, I just want to show you my persona roster. So the ones I'm going to be consistent is Fafnir and Maria, because Fafnir, I have them as my starter persona to give me my 3 buffs at the very beginning. And then I just have Maria so that way whenever I do charge or concentrate, it just costs about 1 SP. And how I'm going to do charge and concentrate is through the accessories, the Ring of Greed and the Ring of Pride. The Ring of Greed contains a concentrate and the Ring of Pride contains a charge skill. So if you're curious whether those apply to Will of the Sword, yes they do. They count just as concentrate and charge. And finally, the difficulty is on easy because I just like to see big boy damage. So again, we hit our first mob and lucky us, it's Kodama. So let's test out magic. So first, we're going to demonstrate Mighty Gaze's average damages with attack and concentrate. And the first average I got is 5,534. Alright, so let's try that one more time. And my second average is 5,664. Alright, so let's move on to Will of the Sword. Does Will of the Sword in a magic build out damage Mighty Gaze? And the first average I got is 5,591. So we hit more than the first average, but we hit under the second average. So let's try this again, see if we can hit more or less. And my second average hit less at 5,554. So does this mean that Will of the Sword hits less than Mighty Gaze? No, I think I just got lucky having just a super high average on the second hit for Mighty Gaze. However, I think Mighty Gaze and Will of the Sword pretty much hit the same. So in case you were wondering if you screwed up putting Will of the Sword or Mighty Gaze on your magic build persona, honestly, it just seems that because the ranges are just really close, there's no wrong answer whether you're gonna go Mighty Gaze or Will of the Sword when it comes to your overall damage output. Alright, so now that we cleared magic out of the way, let's move on to physical. So first, I will be testing out Will of the Sword on Yoshitsune. Now with Yoshitsune, he one-shots the entire Kodama mob in 1 hit. So I'm just gonna base off my averages on those 1 hits that he hits. And the first average I got is 1,236. So let's try that one more time. And I got 1,207. So those are our Will of the Sword averages. So now let's test out Undying Fury. So because Undying Fury gives us 30% more damage within our physical skills, technically this should be stronger than Will of the Sword because Will of the Sword doesn't outdamage Mighty Gaze, and Mighty Gaze is a 20% buff. So I tested out Yoshitsune Undying Fury. So our first average is 1,306, which is already more than both our averages of Will of the Sword. So I tried it a second time and I got less. So my average was 1,273, which is still more, but just it doesn't look like a big gap between the other averages. So I tried it a third time to see how much I can get, and this time this is my highest average, which was 1,317. In conclusion, on your physical personas, you should put Undying Fury because you just squeeze out a little bit more damage. It's not a lot, but it's a little bit more. And in case you're wondering how to pass down Undying Fury to Yoshitsune, just to make things really easy without going more into details about recipes, so that'll be saved for another video. To pass down Undying Fury to your Yoshitsune, just fuse Gongen and Angel, and you'll make Yatagarasu, one of the ingredients to make Yoshitsune. And there you go. That's how you pass down Undying Fury. So now, the last tests. Let's test out gun builds. So my ignorant self, I thought, okay, so guns are usually considered a physical type of skill. So I thought, okay, when I made my Raoul gun build, I wanted to pass down Undying Fury for that extra 30%. Because we've already proven that Undying Fury hits harder than Will of the Sword. So with Raoul, I tested it out with 1-shot kill. So I'm going to hit the mobs 1 at a time, so that way we can get 3 averages. So with Raoul and using the skill 1-shot kill, I hit the Kodamas 1 at a time, and then I just got my averages from there. And my first average is 4,512. And I'm going to stop there. I'm just going to test it once. And you might be asking, why? Well, Undying Fury doesn't activate with a gun skill. The reason I know that is because whenever a trait activates, it always appears in the top left corner that your trait activates. I'm going to demonstrate right now. You can see that Will of the Sword activates here, Yoshitsune's Undying Fury activates here. But when Raoul attacks, nothing pops out in the top left, and that means the trait didn't activate. So we've proven that Undying Fury does not stack with gun skills. It's unfortunate, but that's fine because it just shows that maybe Will of the Sword is the preferred trait to use on your gun skills. So this time I rebuilt Raoul and I gave him Will of the Sword. And our damage output with Raoul with Will of the Sword is 5,050. 50, which is much more than our first average of Undying Fury. And then just to showcase a little bit more flair, I also wanna, because I have such a high crit chance with Raul, let me show you the crit damage I got with Undying Fury. And the crit damage I got was 6,834. Okay, cool. So let me demonstrate to you the crit damage of Will of the Sword. And let me tell you, I'm not gonna just show you once. I'm gonna show you that we hit it 3 times in a row. And my average for those 3 hits was 7,759. So if you're asking, where does Will of the Sword shine the most? It is gun skills. If you want to make your gun persona, you should pass down Will of the Sword, as that is one of the most optimal traits for damage outputs. And if you're wondering how to pass down Will of the Sword to Raul without going to, again, like Yoshitsune, without going too much into fusion recipes, as that will be saved in another video, just fuse Futsunushi and Shisa and you will get Raul with Will of the Sword. And there you go. Now we know where Will of the Sword stands. When it comes for magic builds, there's no wrong answer. You can go Mighty Gaze or Will of the Sword, as they netted us about the same averages. For physical personas, you do not want Will of the Sword. You want Undying Fury, as that has outputted more damage than Will of the Sword. And for gun, you should be using Will of the Sword, since we don't have an Undying Fury Mighty Gaze equivalent of a gun trait. So Will of the Sword is our best choice for gun builds. Alright, thank you so much for watching my Will of the Sword testing. And if you're curious about anything, just drop a comment down below and I'll try to answer you as fast as I can. And of course, as always, stay salty.